Welcome to the Solidify modifier. In this video you will create a 3D object from just curves. Give the new object thickness using the Solidify modifier. So let's hop over into Blender. So here we are, we're tantalizingly close to having what's almost a complete lamp, but it's missing the lampshade at the top. So we're going to use some similar skills that we learnt when making the base in order to make the lamp. But of course the lamp is actually hollow because it needs a bulb in the middle of it. So let's create ourselves a new Blender file. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we can just practice these skills that we need to work on. I'm going to get rid of the default cube from our scene. I'm also going to get rid of the camera and the lamp just to make it simple to follow. So the first thing I want to do is add myself two curves. One is going to be a circle. So let's add the circle, and it doesn't actually, oh it does matter because that's it's the other curve that matters as well. So let's leave that in the middle. I'm going to rotate it so it's locked to the x-axis and facing down the y-axis. So there we go. That's the way the lamp's going to be generated from this circle. The next thing we need to do is add a Bezier curve. I want to be able to see what I'm doing. I'm going to flip around to the left, and I need to be in orthographic projection. There we go. So there's our circle, and I want a Bezier curve that I can see here. So let's add a curve, making sure we're in object mode. Bezier, I can't see it at the moment because it's on the XY plane. I think I just need to rotate it here, and 90 degrees there. On the Y, is it? Oh, that's translation. So I'll make it disappear. Let's try 90 on here. So that looks good, and then 90 on the Y as well. Or was it X? Okay, so that's good, and it's actually going the way that I want it to go as well. I'm happy with that. I need to lift it up by 1 on the Z-axis, so I'll lock it to the Z-axis and press 1, so it's on the origin itself, just as I'm creating this. Okay, so let's link these two together so we can see it as we build it up. So we need to go to the curve properties over here, and we need the circle to have the bevel object of this definition curve that we've got here. Haven't named anything at the moment, so I'll call this outline. Oh, outling, right. Oh, doing very well here with my typing, right. And let's set the bevel object to the, no, it's the circle needs the one of the outline. There we go. So we're starting to get something building up here. And what we'll need to do, I'm going to go into edit mode and start moving these points about. So that's a rough lamp, obviously, but I think we're going to need 2 control points to get a rough shape. I'm going to extrude out and pop one there, rotate the handles around a little, there we go, and perhaps rotate this one around here, pull that down just a bit sharper. I think I need to just pull it up actually. There we go, that gives a better design, and you can obviously play about with this to your heart's content to get the shape that you want. I'm going to leave it like that for the moment. Okay, so here we have basically a 2-dimensional object. Now, in the curve properties here, if you hit 2D on the circle, it will fill it in and become a flat shape, and we can have a look at the wireframe and see that there's nothing inside it. It's just a completely solid object once you've done that. Now I'm going to hop back onto 3D because I want it hollow, but that is essentially just a skin. There's no thickness to it. So we need to use what's called a modifier, and we need the solidify modifier. So we're going to go to our modifiers, add a modifier, and go down to solidify, which is under generate. Now once we've done that, we can see it changes straight away. Oh, that looks good. And if we hop into wireframe mode, we can't see anything at the moment. That's probably because the thickness is very, very low. So let's have a thickness of 1, and oh, there we go, it's got a great thickness there. Perhaps 1 was a little too high. Let's go to 0.5, and now hop out of wireframe mode and just see what's going on. And that's absolutely brilliant. We actually want a hole in the back here so we can change our curve if we wanted to make that happen. Now the clamp feature is very useful. it actually allows us to constrain the amount of thickness we add. So if we go here and increase the clamp value, it doesn't matter how much you increase or decrease this value. You've got negative thickness and positive thickness. It clamps it to a certain ratio, and that's very helpful to making sure that you don't push geometry through itself. So if I turn the clamp completely off, and in this wireframe mode, just keep increasing the thickness, essentially the thinnest parts, as you can see, start passing through one another, and that will continue happening again and again and again. So eventually, if you push it out, you get something wacky like this going on. Although, to be quite honest, that is almost a jet fighter engine again, or a tannoy. Attention everybody, take this course now. Brilliant. So we've made a tannoy. But there's obviously a lot of geometry inside. It's a very messy model doing it that way. It would be much better just defining this with curves. So let's push that back. So sensible, and increase the clamp. And depending on how high you set that clamp, it's got a value between 0 and 2. Depends on the amount of clamping that will actually happen. So again, in wireframe mode, it gives us a good indication of wall thickness throughout. So you generally just need to play with these two figures here, the thickness and clamp, in order to get yourself a reasonable looking lampshade or bell, or anything else that has this shape here, or anything that follows a thickness pattern. So if you define anything else using curves, you can add this thickness here, or indeed just a plane, you can add thickness using the solidify modifier. Okay guys, it's challenge time. I'd like you to create the lampshade. So create the lampshade using curves with a solidify modifier. Now for ease, I do suggest you set a new rest position of the upper arm going along the y-axis. It'll just make creating your lampshade a lot easier. Now if you're following along with my exact model, then do feel free to add a ball for the joint at the top of the lower arm. I'm going to make this top section really simple, so this head has not 360-degree movement. We're going to constrain it later on. But do add a ball at the top of the lower arm. If you've got a slightly different mechanism, then go ahead and create that with the knowledge you've now got. If you have created a ball joint, then set it as the parent of both curves. Add another bone to your armature, name that one appropriately, and then parent that bone to the lampshade ball joint. Okay, one final thing, when you are done, reset the rest pose so it looks like this in the picture. Pause the video now and give that a go. Welcome back guys, let's hop straight on over into Blender and create our lampshade. So let's go ahead and make our lampshade. So the first thing I want to do is just align this, so basically it's just running flat. Now because I've already put the constraints on and they're accurate, I know that I can literally just grab that and move it down and it will be locked in position. If we move to the left view or the right view, it doesn't matter, we can see that it's running straight along there. Finally, I want to use Ctrl and A and apply the pose as the rest pose. Now that then changes the edit mode, will be now the same. Now if we had done it in the edit mode, it actually screws up all of the angles and constraints that we put in because it changes the angles. So you need to make those sort of changes in pose mode. Now that we have that there, we need to actually create our circle and our Bezier curve. So the first thing I will do is move the cursor to the 3D cursor to the end of this section here. So I'm going to come out of edit mode, select our upper arm, hop into edit mode again, and excellent, the top face is selected. If it's not, I can select it. I'm going to move the 3D cursor to selection, or to selected, which will put it smack bang in the middle of that face. Right, the next thing I will need to do is come out of edit mode so I don't add our curves to that object, and create us a circle. It's going to be pretty big, by default it's going to be 1. So I'm going to do the rotation on the x-axis by 90, that's fine. And I'm going to here the radius, I've been playing with some figures, I think it's going to need to be about 0.08 or thereabouts. Perfect. I'm happy with that circle. So now we need to add another curve which is going to define the outline of our model. Excellent, so that's in there. We'll do some tinkering with this curve in a moment. It doesn't really matter on the size, but I'm just going to make it roughly the same size as our circle that we have here. Now that we've got that, we need to make sure that the circle uses the line here, the Bezier curve, as its bevel object. And we can do some renaming in a moment. So now that we've got that there, let's actually sort out this curve here so that it actually follows the shape that we're making. Otherwise it's just a bit confusing if you're moving things one way and they're moving on another axis. So the way that I'm going to do that, I'm just going to flip round to the top view so I can see this curve, and I'm going to rotate it round in the z-axis by 90, and let's just move it out as well so we can see what's going on. Now let's go in and edit that and see what happens when we move this one. Okay, so when we move left and right, the actual curve itself is moving forward and back, so we need a 90-degree rotation somewhere. So let's hop back into object mode and let's try rotating it 90 degrees. Well, let's cancel the 90 degrees on the Z and try that again. And that's still moving left and right there, so let's do 90 degrees on the X. Okay, that's rotated around so we can't see it from this angle, but it looks like from the side that's going to make excellent sense. So let's go around here and just see what's going on. Hop into the left-hand view. Now that's starting to look more like our lampshade shape. So if we hop into edit mode and I pull it forward and back, it is going forward and back, but it looks like the curve itself is the wrong way around. So I'm just going to move the curve literally round itself and grab this point over here if I can see it anymore. There it is, and move it this way. Perfect. So then we've got this bit here, which is going forward and back. Still not quite right, so we need to rotate it once more on another axis. Let's cancel that one there and view it from the top and put a 90-degree rotation in there. Just going to need 90 in all of them. It's going to need a 180 somewhere by the looks of it. Let's try 180x. Okay, that looks perfect. So a bit of playing about there and we've got ourselves the right shape. So let's go around to the left again and edit that curve, and we can see now when we pull it forward and back it matches, and it's even got the little incorrect inflection going on, so we can rotate that round so it's not being fussy and coming in on itself. So we can move that back ever so slightly now. This one here, clicking the wrong thing. And we've got a hole in there, that's absolutely fine. We can cover that up in a moment with a ball joint. I'm just going to move this one in a little because that's just a little bit wide, and move these controls around. Okay, that's looking good. So let's just have a look for scale. That might end up being a bit big, I'm not sure yet. We can always scale it up and down or modify these curves later. I'm just going to extrude and put another bit in here and around there. How's that looking? That's pretty much in proportion. It's looking a bit thick, so let's go here and push that in slightly. Move that one in again and just make this a bit smaller as well. Brilliant. I'm happy with that for the moment. I could probably spend the next hour or so fiddling about with it and getting it more perfect, but remember, don't chase perfection all the time. So we need to add ourselves in come out of edit mode into object mode and add a solidify modifier. So in the modifiers, making sure that our Bezier circle is selected, because that's the thing we're applying the thickness to, and go to solidify. Oh, that looks pretty good already. Let's just play with a couple of values. No, actually 0.1 seems absolutely fine. Looks 0.01. There we go. Right, so I'm going to move the cursor to selected again with the right key combo of Shift and S. It'll place it back there, and I'm going to add a mesh object that's a UV sphere. Of course, it's going to be massive. I'm simply going to downsize it to, it was 0.8 earlier, I think, or 0.08, one of the two, 0.08. So 0.08, and again you will have to play with some figures that suit your model fine. So now that we've got that in place, that's created a ball joint there. I'm happy with that. We will just set it as smooth shading so it matches the rest of the model. Okay, brilliant. That's starting to look much like a lamp. The final thing I'm going to do is change it so the rest position is similar to how it was before. So I'm going to hop over into pose mode after selecting the lamp rig. Once we've done that, I'm going to move this by 90 degrees up here, but it's not connected to anything yet. So let's go ahead and create another bone coming out of here, lock it to the y-axis, so it's coming out of there, and then finally we've got a bit of parenting to do here. So this, let's have this area here, the actual lampshade and the ball, almost connected and being as one. So we've got our sphere here, so I'm going to call that lampshade joint, because that's essentially what it's doing. And then we've got our Bezier circle. So this is the lampshade profile, and then the curve is the lampshade outline. Excellent. So now we have those three things named. I'm going to basically make the curves, I think, children of the joint, and then I can select the joint, select the armature. We do need to be in pose mode for this, so let's hop back over to the rig. Pose mode, excellent. So select the joint if I can, yep. Select the armature, or more specifically the bone that's connected, and then parent it. Control and P to the bone. Okay, so now we should see that that is constrained there, and if we move around we should be able to move it to the left, to the right, etc. Perfect. I'm going to reset the rotation, and finally I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to rotate that by 45 degrees, and I think this one here, rotate it by -90 in the ZY plane, which will be Shift and X. Brilliant. So that is that set, and finally I want to go Control and A and apply the pose as the rest pose. So that's the default state our lamp is going to be in. Okay, let's have a look at our lamp and see how it's doing. I'm just going to turn X-ray off on the armatures, but I'm just going to hide the rig for the moment. That'll probably be easier. Pose mode, and now I should be able to turn that rig off. Brilliant. So the only thing that I can see here for changing later on is potentially making this ball joint where it joins onto the upper arm, perhaps making the upper arm a bit thinner so that it's not doesn't look so ridiculous at the top there. But otherwise, we've got ourselves a pretty good looking lamp. How are you guys getting on? Please share in the discussions. I'd love to see how you're getting on, and I will see you in the next lecture.